you to participate, to share, to like, and help grow this conversation and community. Our goal is to connect neighbors and neighborhoods around issues of importance to our communities. And I'm pleased to have my partners today, leaders at Hawthorn Neighborhood Council, the Hawthorn organization. Diana Hawkins is the executive director, and one of her chief staff members is Andrew Bornhoff. Also, Dee Phillips is board chair of Hawthorn. We hope to be joined by others over the course of this program. But first of all, thanks to my colleagues and friends and neighbors at Hawthorn. I said this before the program, Diana, but I'll say it again. Insight always expresses gratitude to Hawthorn because it was Hawthorn's support, along with that of Jordan Neighborhood and Willard Homewood and R33 NERC, that launched Insight back in 1976 when we began as a newspaper after we spent a year as a magazine. So forever grateful and forever committed to the important work of neighborhood organizations that have just huge legacy and history, like Jordan and like Hawthorn and NERC. Diana, let's jump right in, first of all, and what's coming up, what's on the agenda for Hawthorn Neighborhood Council in the next few days. I know we got the North Side Urban Coalition, right, coming up on Friday.
Correct. Yes, we have the Northside Urban Coalition coming up. Thanks, Al, for having us again this week. Again, my name is Diana Hawkins, Executive Director for Hawthorn Neighborhood Council. Along with the coalition this week, we are collecting for our winter warrant, which is, we do this every year. It's going to be done a little bit different this year. So there was a postcard that went out there. It's on our information is on our website. But what we're trying to do is, we know that some kids still have to return to school. So we want to make sure that they have a winter coat, gloves, hats, scarves, and we're even going to collect school supplies. Normally we do, a backpack collection, and then we do the winter coats. This year we're going to kind of combine it since we have to do it a little bit different. So if you want more information regarding that, please email Andrew, A. Bornhoft, BORNHOFT at hncmpls.org, or call 612-529-6033. So that's one thing that we got coming up. And the other thing that we're going to be doing shortly here is we're going to be gearing up for Black History Month, because that's just going to be in a couple months. So we need to decide, now. People need to decide what they're going to do and how they're going to honor that, in addition to everything else that's going on along with the pandemic and the crisis.
What's on the agenda for the Urban Coalition meeting on Friday? Is that pretty much it?
Yes, we actually have Representative Fu Lee coming to talk about the money that was just given to the indigenous people. And we also have an update that's going to be happening from Bill Magnuson regarding the opiates and the overdose, because keep in mind, a lot of people want to know what the coalition is about. We are an awareness group. We're trying to make our youth aware of opiates, underage drinking, underage smoking. Along with that, we have to do the vaping in addition to the trauma. So that's kind of, what we're doing. We also have Sarah from North Point. She's going to be on, and she's going to be explaining about what North Point is doing and how they are helping people. Let me say, I know I'm forgetting someone. Andrew's going to talk about the grant that we received with regards to helping our youth. We received a grant, and so we're going to put a coloring book together. It's kind of like a little, contest. I'm not going to steal Andrew's thunder. I let him. I'm thinking, am I forgetting anything?
One last thing, Diana. We've got,
of course, Al. We can't forget Al. Everybody loves to facilitate this meeting, so we can't forget you, Al. Am I forgetting anything else?
One more thing, Diana. We were going to have the update on the encampments and the tiny homes.
Yes. Sheila Delaney is going to, and she's going to talk about the encampments and the tiny homes, because when you think about it, Hawthorn is getting ready to start to face the eviction as well. So we need to have some help. and resources on where we can send our people.
Did you mention the vaping survey?
Not yet. That was next.
Okay.
But thank you. We're also going to be talking about the coalition is part of He-Man, which is part of the UM, which we have a new survey that we are going to be conducting in North Minneapolis around it. So that's going to be launched this week. Okay, now am I forgetting anything? Go ahead, Al.
Great. Andrew, jump in. You and I, before we went live, Andrew, were talking about, and with Dee, just reflecting on the event of the day was the elections last Tuesday. And it might be cool just to reflect on how the controversy about access to voting is affecting our communities, or at least what our thoughts and feelings are as neighbors, feelings, what our expectations and hopes are for the November election. And you might want to give a recap on kind of what happened in terms of outcomes on the most recent primary, which was last week, I think the 11th. So Andrew, what happened in the inner city in particular?
Post-elections are a great time for people who love numbers. And if you, the city of Minneapolis does a great job of providing breakdowns of voter turnout. So if you go to vote.minneapolis.gov, you can find this information as well. But particularly in Ward 5, and then Hawthorn is the 8th voting precinct within Ward 5. One thing that we're all focused on right now is absentee ballots, right? Vote by mail. And the guy in office right now wants to try and prevent that. For Hawthorn, for the 5th ward, over 50% of the ballots cast were actually absentee ballots.
Really?
So 53.9% were absentee ballots.
Huge.
Yep. So total for the 5th ward, we saw just over 5,000 total ballots cast. And yet, like I said, so just over 50%, 2,700 and change of those were vote by absentee. And then within our own, for Hawthorn, actually the entire neighborhood is the one precinct. We saw similarly. So believe it or not, actually, our total votes. Let me make sure I get these numbers right. Yeah. So total ballots cast in Hawthorn were 685. That's only 50% of our voter turnout, so we could make that better. But honestly, that's pretty good. But of those, 70% were absentee ballots.
Let's see,
70%. So this is something that I just want to stress. Now when we all get our general ballots, my wife and I, we voted absentee. One thing that's important is if you can't get it in the mail, Hennepin County has 2 locations where you can drop off your ballots. And that's what I did. I dropped off our ballots at the Hennepin County Government Center. And it's an incredibly easy process. It's the same exact location where you can vote by vote early, right? So if you want to vote at a poll but vote early, it's the same place. It's just on the main floor of the Hennepin County Government Center. And actually if you have family members or friends even who have ballots, and they can't get there, you can bring their ballots there with yours, and they just ask you to sign out a piece of paper saying you're not violating the law, saying that you haven't tampered with their ballots. So we're blessed that at least in Hennepin County, it's relatively easy to get your ballot in early if you need to.
And so do you have to request the early ballot, or ballots being sent to everybody in the county?
No. So here we have to request early ballots, but again, that's it's a super easy process. Actually, for me, I just thought of it and I pulled it up on my phone a week before the primary and got my ballot.
Just like that.
You just answer a few questions. You do have to do an individual application for each voter, however.
Right.
So you can't do one for a family of voters. But again, vote.minneapolis.gov is a resource I use for that kind of stuff. And they've made it incredibly easy to fill out. It's not, if you don't have a driver's license, you can use your last 4 digits of your social, or there are other identification methods. Again, in Minnesota, we are in a state that wants people to vote, and we always have the highest voter turnout in the country. And the big reason for that is we want people to vote, and you can register on voting day as well.
Same day. My wife and I go to the voting station over on East Hennepin. I think it's about 980 or so. or 900 block of East Independence in a business center, but it's easy to do. It's well organized, and two things can happen. One, you can drive in and stay in your car, and they'll hand you a ballot. You fill it out. They'll verify you, and without getting out of your car, you can either drop off a ballot that you had gotten, or you can go to another place and they bring your ballot out. You fill it out. They take it in, and once they have run it through the machine, the two people that carried your ballot in, that's two people for ballot security, right? So you know it's not one person who might or might not like what you did, but two people gives you the confidence that they're each watching each other and assuring you that your vote is being handled properly. And they bring it back out and confirm, and you're good to go. So it's easy to do, and I'm hopeful that everybody can, or you can park there and go inside and vote early as well. So you got three ways to do it: drive through and drop off a ballot. You can drive up and do your voting outside, or you can park and go inside and do your early balloting. So that's really wonderful. We should do all we can to encourage people to get our numbers up as high as possible. But go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say the other new thing this year is normally with absentee balloting, you have to have a witness, and that's been waived this year as well.
Great.
So you don't need to find somebody to write down their name or sign their signature to your ballot saying they witnessed it. You know, bringing up the making sure this is done well. You don't even have to worry about that. So yes, we're in a city that really wants to see people take advantage of your right and vote.
Dee, what do you think? What are your feelings, and what are your concerns and expectations for successfully getting our community to exercise its right to vote in the coming general election? Part of the conversation is the fear that there may be some suppression of vote by the post office, the appointment of one of President Trump's, we call them cronies or friends, to head the Postal Service. The discussion nationally about whether they're saying they don't have the manpower or the systems to handle massive universal voting, and then that leading to discussions by the president suggesting that universal advance or mail voting is not a good idea. And so it's creating confusion for sure, and creating doubt as opposed to creating assurance and instructing people on how to effectively cast and execute their voting franchise. But Dee, what are you hearing? What are you feeling?
Well, I voted absentee as well. Really simple to get the ballot, really simple to get it back. I'm waiting to get the general. Now I did the primary, I'm waiting for the general. So as soon as I get that, I'm going to return it. But I keep thinking about this and wondering how as a council, can we help our neighbors do this? Get their votes in. And I can't think of anything that we can do, but it worries me so that people will not vote. So I keep kind of kicking it around in my head thinking, what can we do besides encouraging people to vote? Can we make it any easier? Can we be one of these people that drops off ballots for people that maybe can't get down to a place to do it? Is that something that we can do as a council? I don't know, but whatever we can do, we've got to figure it out and get it done, because I'm very worried about people not being able to vote.
Okay, well, maybe that's something that should come up as part of the agenda Friday. Just
maybe
several agencies, at least other people have ideas or expectations, and 3 or 4 minute discussion on that might be appropriate on this Friday. Andrew, you got your boss there, I see. Introduce.
Yeah, this is Llewellyn. Don't tell his mom that he's looking at a computer screen. He's not allowed to, but in the interest of keeping him happy.
Well, he's cool.
He can't vote yet, but give him 18 years and he'll be voting.
That's a handsome guy. Good work for you and your wife.
Thank you.
So, and there's nothing more important than our children and our responsibility to them, our duty to them, and they give us meaning, I think. So I just want to applaud you for being a dad and a dad that cares as well. So
Thank
cool,
you.
cool.
Well,
Yeah.
and you know, if we're going to talk about children and voting, I mean, we forget that there are some kids in high school, 18-year-olds, who can vote. You know, I think we focus on a lot of parents, or we focus on homeowners, but we have a lot of youth in our community that can, you know, the world is going to be theirs. It's not, you know, not ours. And so it's, you know, for them, we want to make sure that their voices are the ones being heard, because these people, you know, I think we forget that, especially in a presidential election, that person's there for at least 4 years, but up to 8 years. And when you're 18, you're going to change a lot in 4 to 8 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so maybe as an 18-year-old, you do not realize the power that that person will have over the next almost decade of your life, potentially. And so really encouraging and making sure our youth understand how important these elections are, because it really, I mean, you know, we know this as adults, but my first presidential election was George Bush, and Kerry. And boy, that still has ramifications, you know, in our life. We still have a war going on. And so making sure 18-year-olds and our youth, our young people in their 20s understand how important these elections are for them, and get out there, vote. You can show up on the same day. If you decide on the day of the election, go for it, go vote.
Yeah, it's really good too. That causes me to reflect on being maybe in the 6th grade, maybe in about 1956, maybe somewhere around there. And my parents were Eisenhower Republicans back in the day. And back then, a lot of African Americans, particularly ones that were entrepreneurs, were Republicans, because they viewed the Republican Party as a party for small business and for, you know, less government. So, and then my father, being an immigrant, also gravitated towards what he thought the principles of the Republican Party were at that time. My generation, my cousins and I, through debating, starting in 6th grade, 5th grade, 7th, 8th, and 9th, moved towards being Kennedy, supporting Democrats from the Kennedy vision of 1960 and beyond. And so the point I'm making is that it's important to discuss politics with young people, even, you know, grade schoolers, even middle schoolers and junior high schoolers, so that they begin to developing a sense of what your family's story has been and why. And then they can develop their own idea of what the values they are developing show up like in the political process. And that maturation that they experience over years just makes them better, more effective citizens, I believe. So to Dee's point, I think whatever we can do to encourage more discussion, and to your point, Andrew, to talk to young people, high schoolers in particular, and be as loud as we can in encouraging and applauding them for their voting activity, civic engagement. I think that's what we should do. Any other concerns right now that you want to give a preview, Andrew, on your grant report that you'll be making Friday?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for that, Al. We received a mini grant, $1,000 mini grant that really is the money needs to be spent focusing on youth and helping them with anxiety and trauma, and just understanding what options are there for them. So we've been working on this idea of, I think we're all familiar with adult coloring books. They've really become popular in the last 10 years or so. So a coloring book focused more on our high schoolers, our middle schoolers in our community, but images of our community and people in our community. So that while the book itself is providing them with maybe a moment of relaxation while they just color. I mean, we all know how sometimes scribbling even just feels good. They're not just coloring an image. They're coloring something that is in our community, that is there for them if they're experiencing anxiety, if they're experiencing moments of trauma, if they're feeling like the only way I can deal with this is through drug use, or through some sort of bringing something into their body that is not a good thing, not healthy. Hopefully they're learning about these places that will help them not fall to that, not become victim to that. In the coalition specifically, we talk about opioids. We're talking more and more about vaping, and how vaping is becoming a huge issue, especially as we see more youth using vapes as a device for marijuana.
Mhm.
And so we're working on that project, and we're making progress, and we've got a great list of locations that are going to go into the book, and
Mhm.
we hope to be distributing it in right around October.
Great,
So
awesome.
we'll have an update about that on Friday.
Okay, Diane, any other concerns or things you want to share?
Al, I want to switch a little bit to our schools, because Andrew and I was on a Zoom meeting early this morning.
Mhm.
I found it very interesting that the rural areas are having a very hard time with regards to internet. These kids can't get their work done.
Mhm.
And I look at us here in the city, because there was a lady, Eloise, on the call with us this morning from the UAM. And like they said, what are we as a community doing to support our students, support the school staff, and support our parents right now? Because our kids are getting ready to return to school, and this is another crisis that we're getting ready to face. So that's kind of like on my mind, my heart today, because that was very disheartening for me this morning to find out that these people up here don't have internet, they can't get their work done, the kids are falling behind. So that makes me think about our kids right here in the inner city that are not getting it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when we were on last week with the Hawthorn huddle, the two principals were on the call, and they talked about having to show up this week, I think, for staff or team leaders, and then to prepare for, and I understand them to say that at least for the senior high schools, we have the principal for North and the principal for Henry on the call, that they are going to be starting off with distance learning, at least the beginning. But I did not find out what the story is going to be with middle schools or with elementary schools. Do you, and with preschool and daycare? Do you have any idea of where we stand in that?
Actually, I didn't hear that, but just so you know, our September huddle is going to focus on our middle school and students, what's going to happen with them, because like you said, the middle school students are the ones that they want to return all the way. It's not going to work. And even sending them 2 days a week is not going to work, because we're affecting our kids. I mean, if we look in other states, these kids that have gone back to school, almost 10 of them are infected in every one of these schools, if not more. So, I mean, are we prepared for this?
And I was on the same call as Diana, and something I think the rural urban connection that is going on right now is fascinating, because, you know, every teacher, everyone that was on these calls, that new teachers, were just, the conversation was, we're all in hurry up and wait. Right? Principals and officials who run schools have essentially been told, figure it out, but here's what you can't do. We don't know what you can do. You figure it out. And in a situation like that, what happens is people of privilege wind up just going on their own path. And so whether urban or rural, we're seeing the parents who have the ability to find tutors or find another way to get their kids taught are just doing that, because they're not going to sit around and wait for the schools to figure it out. So what then happens, right? We see the same thing where poor students in urban Minneapolis and poor students in rural Minnesota are experiencing the same thing, lack of access to the tools they need. And what drives me nuts is this one is one of those things where I feel like us, you know, our groups are very different, outstate Minnesota and then urban Minnesota, we could get together on this, right? I mean, Diana bringing up we forget about this. We all have such simple access to internet. How many of these kids, it doesn't matter if they're in a decent school system or not, they don't have high-speed internet at home.
Right.
So, you know, so for them, it doesn't matter whether the school has a great program set up for distance learning or not. So I think really it's just a failure of officials. You know, the principals we heard at the coalition are trying to figure out, can we bring students in and have them be spaced out in the gymnasium, in the cafeteria? Can we not? And that just leads again to a situation where people of privilege are just going to say, I'm not willing to wait. I'm going to just do whatever I can for my kid. And the rest of our students, the ones who need the help most, are just left with nothing.
Have you heard about elementary school at all? About, you know, primary school?
Not the elementary schools yet. I had to call into Miss Annie Long from PYC. to see if she would be willing to share some information with us regarding that, what's going on with elementary schools. Because, I mean, what is it, less than 2 weeks that most of these kids are going back to school?
And what about Pica Head Start? I mean, they have hundreds, if not thousands, of kids in the city that they're responsible for, or in the preschool age group. Do you know about what their status is?
I haven't heard, but Dee, she mentors in the younger school. Have you heard anything, Dee?
I think that it's all going to be distance learning from what I've heard.
Okay.
I know that Minneapolis is not going back in the fall right away.
For primary schools and for lower school?
Yeah, for elementary.
Okay. And so I wonder what impact, here's the other thing. So what impact does this have on the bus companies? The people who work in the district doing busing, people who do food service, what impact is happening there? And then what about the companies that are commercial that contract with the district, and we see them, all school year long, every day, moving our children safely, primarily, back and forth. What's going to happen with all of them during the pandemic? I don't know what happened from April to close of the year, but they probably sat idle. And maybe that's where some of the PPP funding went, was to protect their jobs during that crisis. But I think that's all very interesting to see what's going to happen with the trickle down impact and effects of the COVID pandemic.
Well, there was an article. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dick.
Well, there was an article in the paper not too long ago where they interviewed a bus driver that said that they didn't even get unemployment because of their status, their job status.
Oh,
and I guess my question is, okay,
then.
First of all, they don't get unemployment. But secondly, okay, you want to open up the schools when they have 2 or 3 kids, elementary school kids, sitting per seat on a bus. That's in no way social distancing. So how do you just the logistics of getting kids back and forth to school safely, and you've got this bus driver that's exposed to 50, 60 kids per bus, and he or she is making more than 1 trip a day. So it could be hundreds of kids that they're exposed to. How do you do that? And I know in Loring, where I volunteer, they don't sit at desks, they sit at tables. There's 6 kids per table.
Right.
How do you social distance kids at a table? The kindergartners, they sit together and do things all the time. How do you get a 5-year-old to understand social distancing?
Or to wear a mask more than 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah. The logistics of it is just kind of overwhelming. I don't know how you can do this. Not that I don't want the kids to go back to school, not that I want anybody to fall behind, but I want everybody to be safe, not just the kids, but the teachers and the parents and the grandparents and all these people they're going to be exposed. Have people not heard of Typhoid Mary? I mean, she never got sick, but she carried that disease everywhere. These little kids could carry it home to all kinds of people. I don't understand what we're going to do. I'm worried about what we're going to do.
Well, those were all good questions that came up on this meeting today. And one that stuck out to me was when the lady said the bus drivers will not be able to drive the bus because they would only be able to take 5 to 10 students. That's it, if you're going to social distance. So first of all, the bus drivers, who's going to drive the bus? Because the bus drivers don't want to work. Because like they said, they're exposed to hundreds of kids every day.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher, the one lady said, she was in a group where we were talking about supporting school staff, and she said she takes care of her elderly grandparents, and they're from another country. So right there, you have a problem. Then you have a problem with the kids, and then the one lady said that there was 4 kids in one family that tested positive.
Wow. You just got muted, Diana. You hit your mute button by mistake, I think.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You said there are 4 kids? Go ahead.
There were 4 kids in one family that all went to a different school that tested positive for COVID when they returned to school.
Yeah. So I was hearing on the news this morning about the possibility of a saliva test, which would be faster. And I think they produce that or use that with one of the proteins. I don't know, maybe you know, Andrew, or not, but that would be wonderful if they could do, pain-free, quick turnaround testing, and a saliva test might be that, and something that any age could do. And it would be great if they could figure out a way to do testing that gave you results in 15 minutes or so, and be able to do that every day, at a school for all the kids, just to create an awareness of where there's a danger in terms of a person and the possibility of community spread. Well, our world has certainly changed. And I think the future is something that we have to co-create. Nobody has the definitive answer. I think the answers we're looking for are going to come from us, by us, as we spend time together, sort of using our reasoning and our thoughts and our concern and our compassion for each other to develop protocols that allow us to commit to each other's safety. And in doing that, we commit to our own safety. That's what I think. I think it's important that the work that you all do at Hawthorn Neighborhood Council and the other NRP groups is more important than ever. Having said that, there had been pressures to keep or to question the sustainability of neighborhood organizations over the past year or so. Diana, what's the general feeling right now about the future and the sustainability of Hawthorn Neighborhood Council and other groups that are part of the NRP process citywide?
Well, as you know, Al, in October, they're going to make a decision about the funding with regards to NRP. So we're kind of just like all in limbo right now. But what we're hearing is that, during this pandemic, the city really needs these neighborhood organizations because people are reaching out to us. They are calling us. They're asking us, how do you do this? Where do I go to get that? And I'm sorry, but the council's offices are not equipped to take care of these calls. We're talking over 70 neighborhoods. We're talking about tons of people out here volunteering that shouldn't even be out here, but they're still out here. I mean, it's kind of like, work as you see fit, but at the same time, you got to do your job. So we're out here. So now, I mean, we do a call every week, and what I hear on these calls, and it's terrible because, like I said, the neighborhoods really need help, and the city can't afford to do anything with the funding because we need to help the residents with the funding. I'm ready to face big evictions. And where we're at, it's very low income in Hawthorn, Jordan, and those surrounding areas. And we're going to face evictions. People are not going to have anywhere to go. Pretty soon, we're going to start having encampments in Farview Park. And we don't want to see that. We don't want to see these right here by the school, So,
I was driving down where Bobby and I walk. We walk on River Road. Usually either we go to Plymouth Avenue and River Road. We either go to the right, which is sort of downhill, or we go to the left, which is up past the brewery. And for the first time yesterday, I saw a half a dozen tents on the River Road. And so these could be simply recreational, but I'm betting that as the park board last week shut down a number of park encampments, people showed up somewhere. So I'm without knowing this, I hadn't seen these tents there before, and I did see them yesterday, before yesterday, and I think it means that at some point in time, other parks in the community are going to be showing up with people figuring out how to stay somewhere, and so it's a big issue. It's a big problem.
And then that's where they start calling the neighborhoods associations and councils saying, "Hey, we have all these tents here. What do? We have all this trash here." You know what I mean? So I just hope that it's just not moving from one spot to another, like you said, Al.
Well, and now I don't know if you've talked to VJ over at Mad Dads, but I think just this past week they once again, not Mad Dads, but the neighborhood board removed. Sorry, not neighborhood. The Parks board removed Powderhorn Park's encampment. And Mad Dads had actually been patrolling that, and they pulled out because it was too dangerous for them to patrol.
Yes.
And so that's the thing, right? Is like Diana's saying, the city kind of expects, it's a terrible situation. People should not be homeless, right? For whatever the reason. But when it becomes a dangerous situation, then I think neighborhood groups or nonprofit groups or groups like Mad Dads become overwhelmed because nobody who's in an official capacity has stepped in any way.
Right.
And I think again, that's that piece of neighborhood orgs are here to stay. Whether the city's going to fund us or not is one thing or another, but they can get rid of the official ties. But right now, this year, 2020 is the kind of year that breeds more community organizations.
That's right.
So they're going to be a part of the city politics, city policy, whether they want it or not.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, thanks. This has been a good conversation. I think it's just great to have this kind of family conversation about our neighborhood, Hawthorn and North Minneapolis and other communities. And we're going to continue with this every Monday at 1 o'clock. We want to invite our other colleagues from the South Side, particularly those from the Corcoran neighborhood, Central neighborhood, and the Powderhorn neighborhood. And even the Phillips neighborhoods to join this conversation. And in North Minneapolis, we always appreciate having your neighbors, our neighbors at Jack, Jordan area, and members of Cleveland. We've had members from Northside Residents Redevelopment Council, but we want to include the Harrison Neighborhood Association, the what's the I don't know
Farwell. We want to do Farwell and McKinley and Weber. Yes.
Cleveland.
We'll keep working to invite all of them to join this regular Monday debriefing. I think it's time well spent, and it's good to keep us all focused on what we're doing to help create and build and sustain communities that work. So listen, I want to thank you all and keep up the good work. I'm going to see you Friday, right?
Yep. Hope to see everybody Friday. Get in touch with Andrew and he'll send you the link.
All righty. Good enough. Thank you all. I'm Al
Thank you,
Mcfarlane.
Al.
See you. Tomorrow's program is at 1 o'clock. We'll see you tomorrow at 1. Every day, 1 o'clock, Conversations with Al Mcfarlane, both on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.